need some help? Oh, you'd like to know what book won the 2001 Young Reader's Choice Award for 4th through 8th graders? Well, it was a great book called Holes. After young Stanley Yelnats is wrongfully accused of stealing, he can choose going to jail or a juvenile detention camp called Camp Green Lake. Stanley picked Camp Green Lake since he'd never been to camp. But Camp Green Lake is nobody's idea of fun. Every day, Stanley and his fellow inmates must dig a hole in the dried-up lake bed, and the hole must be 5 feet deep and 5 feet square. The camp warden claims that this pointless labor builds character, but that's a lie. Stanley must try to dig up the truth. Born in New York and educated as an attorney in California, Louis Sachar prefers writing children's books. He tries not to write down to kids, and he writes what he thinks is funny. Sachar also won the Young Reader's Choice Award in 1999 for his book Wayside School is Falling Down. He lives with his wife and daughter in Austin, Texas, where the summers are very hot. That's partly what inspired him to write the Newbery and YRCA-winning book Holes, which takes place in the sweltering heat of Texas. Would you like to hear more about the Young Reader's Choice Award? It is the oldest Children's Choice Award in the United States, and it's the only regional award chosen by children of 2 countries. Each year, students in grades 4 through 8 in Alaska, British Columbia and Alberta, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana read and vote for their favorite book. Kids like you will decide which book will win in 2002. This year, for the first time, there is a junior division for 4th through 6th graders with 8 nominated titles, and a middle division for 7th through 9th graders, also with 8 titles. All 4th through 6th graders who have read or listened to at least 2 of the following nominated titles can vote in March. To help you decide which of the 8 books you want to read, let me tell you something about the authors and the stories. The Birchbark House by Louise Erdrich. Louise Erdrich started her writing career as a poet and published her first novel at age 28. Best known as a writer of adult novels, Erdrich grew up listening to her mother and father read and tell stories. And it was her mother's research of their own family history that inspired this first book for young readers, The Birchbark House. Every summer, Okakaya's Ojibwe family builds a new birchbark house, and they move to their cedar log home before the first snows arrive. This close-knit community plants crops, tans hides, and tells stories. But the rhythms of their satisfying life on an island in Lake Superior are shattered when a visitor comes to their lodge one winter, bringing with him an invisible enemy that will change things forever. Bud, Not Buddy by Christopher Paul Curtis. Like the main character Bud, Christopher Paul Curtis grew up in Flint, Michigan. Although he felt a burning desire to write, Curtis took a job hanging doors on cars and kept this job for 13 years. His wife pushed him back to writing, saying, "Better hurry up and start doing something constructive, or look for a new place to live." Curtis certainly did start writing, and his popular books include the Newbery Award-winning Bud, Not Buddy. 10-year-old Bud Caldwell's mama never told him who his father was, but she left a clue. An advertisement that was all about Herman E. Calloway and his famous jazz band, the Dusky Devastators of the Depression. Now Bud is on the road and plans to find this mystery man. Nothing can stop him, not the Great Depression, not hunger or fear, not even vampires. Bunnicula Strikes Again by James Howe. James Howe used to write just for fun. When he was 9 or 10, he wrote a play called Dagwood's Awful Day, based on the Blondie comic strip. He also wrote stories and published his own newspaper called The Vampire Legion. About 25 years ago, he dreamed up the character of Bunnicula, the vampire rabbit who has starred in 4 other James Howe books. Well, kids, you better lock up your artichokes. Bunnicula Strikes Again. When Chester, the Monroe's cat, finds pale vegetables drained of their juices scattered about the Monroe family kitchen, he thinks that Bunnicula, the vampire rabbit, is back to his old ways. But Chester assures his friends that he has matters under control. But when Bunnicula grows listless and tired, Harold is not so sure. Bunnicula may need a dramatic rescue. The Landry News by Andrew Clements. Andrew Clements was a teacher for 7 years before he began writing books for kids. He's the author of several picture books, as well as Frindle, the book that won the Young Reader's Choice Award several years ago. While he is writing a story, Clements sometimes asks himself, what if? For this story, it was, what if a girl began to publish her own newspaper? The answer to that question is the Landry News. The bad news is that Kara Landry is the new kid at Denton Elementary School. The worse news is that her 5th grade teacher, Mr. Larson, would rather read the paper and drink coffee than teach his students anything. So Kara decides to give Mr. Larson something else to read, her own newspaper, the Landry News. Everybody's excited, until the principal decides to use the newspaper to get rid of Mr. Larson. Our Only May Amelia by Jennifer L. Holm. Jennifer L. Holm was a tomboy when she was growing up in Pennsylvania. Now she lives in New York, where she produces TV commercials and music videos. Holm drew on her own childhood memories and a diary written by her great-aunt to tell the story of Our Only May Amelia. She may be a miracle, but she's no proper young lady. It isn't easy being a pioneer in the state of Washington in 1899, but it's particularly hard when you are the only girl ever born in the new settlement. With 7 older brothers and a love of adventure, May Amelia Jackson just can't seem to abide her family's insistence that she behave like a proper young lady. Not when there's fishing to be done, sheep to be herded, and real live murderers to be captured. Ramona's World by Beverly Cleary. Beverly Cleary grew up in Oregon and was in the low reading group, the Blackbirds, not the Bluebirds or Redbirds, until 3rd grade. Even then, it was suggested that Cleary should be a writer of children's books when she grew up, and that became her ambition. Cleary wanted to write the kind of book she loved to read, funny stories about the kind of children she knew. She would have loved knowing somebody who lived in Ramona's World. Ramona is starting 4th grade and thinks it will be her best year ever. She has Roberta, her new baby sister, and Daisy, her new best friend. But things don't look as rosy when Ramona is challenged to improve her rotten spelling, be a good role model for Roberta, and spend more time with the awful Susan. Life isn't easy, and sometimes Ramona fails, often with hilarious results. That Ramona, she's not perfect, but that's perfectly fine. Tuckett's Gold by Gary Paulsen. Gary Paulsen has tried almost every career in existence, but always comes back to writing, and has written well over 100 books. His childhood was not happy. He had no friends, didn't do well in sports, and wasn't very successful in school. While in high school, he discovered the public library and began to read voraciously. After 4 years of service in the Army, Paulsen worked in the aerospace industry and discovered he had writing talent. Now living in New Mexico, Paulsen continues to write exciting adventures that readers love, like Tuckett's Gold. Things look grim for Francis Tuckett and his adopted family, Lottie and Billy. Without horses, water, or food, they're alone in a prairie wasteland, with the dreaded Comanchero outlaws in pursuit. Death can strike at any moment, but so can good fortune. When they stumble upon an ancient treasure, it takes teamwork, courage, and wit to hold on to it. By sticking together, Francis and his family wind up rich beyond their wildest dreams, and ready to head west to find Francis's parents on the Oregon Trail. Zooman Sam by Lois Lowry. When Lois Lowry was a kid, she occasionally wondered what her future job might be. Her grandfather was a banker, but she thought the bank vault was slightly scary. When she grew up, she looked for a job that did not involve locked doors. She bought a desk and filled the drawers with pens and pencils. There, she wrote the book, Zooman Sam. Sam Krupnick is all set for future job day at school. He already knows that he wants to be a zookeeper when he grows up. Sam's mother and his sister, Anastasia, help him make a terrific costume to wear. The trouble is, Sam wears his costume day after day after day after day, long after future job day has come and gone. Encouraged by his teacher, Sam teaches his preschool class about being a zookeeper and learns a lot about himself. So, those are the 8 titles for the 4th through 8th grade division. All you need to do in order to vote in March is read or listen to at least 2 of them. Okay, these next 8 books are for 7th through 9th graders. Let me tell you about these authors and stories. Alone at 90 Foot by Katherine Holubitsky. Born in Toronto, Katherine Holubitsky spent her early years in rural South Ontario. Growing up in a family of 6 children, Holubitsky found privacy and delight in reading. Today, she works in a busy high school library in Edmonton, escaping when she can to read and write. Holubitsky loves the West Coast rainforest near Vancouver, the setting for her first book, Alone at 90 Foot. Lynn Canyon is a beautiful place, a place of life and death. There, 14-year-old Pamela Collins struggles to come to terms with her mother's death, while another mother is searching for her small daughter who is missing after a school field trip. Backwater by Joan Bauer. Joan Bauer's mother was a school teacher with a great sense of humor. Her father was a salesman that no one could say no to. One of her grandmothers was a famous storyteller. All these forces combined to make Bauer a writer who writes funny and touching stories like Backwater. Stuck in a family overflowing with lawyers, Ivy Breedlove longs to be understood, to break free of unfair expectations, and to find the truth about her mysterious hermit aunt, who broke the family mold, the relative no one will talk about. With an outrageous mountain guide leading the way, Ivy sets out on the journey of a lifetime to find the missing link in the Breedlove family. But she may be too late. Can of Worms by Kathy Mackle. A novelist and screenwriter, Kathy Mackle coaches junior Olympic softball, as well as writing and directing plays. She lives north of Boston with her husband and 2 children. Her kids undoubtedly enjoyed Can of Worms. Mike Pillsbury does not fit in with his fellow 7th graders. Instead, he daydreams about ships from outer space and epic battles between alien life forms. Mike hopes that there might be a home for him out there somewhere among the stars. But when he really attracts a motley crew of aliens determined to rescue him, Mike finds he isn't quite ready to leave life on Earth. Will his visitors, who all have something at stake, let him stay? Jason's Gold by Will Hobbs. A former English and reading teacher in the Durango, Colorado public schools, Will Hobbs is a graduate of Stanford University. His home in Durango is near the San Juan Mountains, and he frequently goes backpacking with his family and friends. He has an abiding affection for wild places and the other creatures with whom we share the planet, and hopes that he can elicit those same feelings in his readers. Jason's Gold. Gold! Read all about it. Gold discovered in Alaska. Within hours of hearing the thrilling news, 15-year-old Jason Hawthorne jumps a train for Seattle, stows away on a ship bound for the goldfields, and joins thousands of fellow prospectors attempting the difficult journey to the Klondike. The Dead Horse Trail, the infamous Chilcot Pass, and a 500-mile trip by canoe down the Yukon River lie ahead. With help from a young writer named Jack London, Jason and his dog face moose, bears, and the terrors of a subarctic winter in this bone-chilling survival story. Mary Bloody Mary by Carolyn Meyer. As a teenager, Carolyn Meyer was shy, but she developed a strong imagination and a penchant for writing. She was editor of her high school newspaper and yearbook. Now living in New Mexico, Meyer became interested in writing about the life of Mary, one of Britain's most unpopular monarchs. She wanted to explore why a young princess might have grown into such a venomous queen. Mary, she discovered, lived a life as difficult as Cinderella's and as contemporary as a soap opera. Mary Bloody Mary. Mary Tudor was a beautiful young princess living in a grand palace filled with servants, sparkling jewels, beautiful gowns, and lavish parties. Seemingly out of the blue, she was banished by her father, King Henry VIII, and sent to live in a cold and lonely place without money or new clothes, and without her mother. King Henry abandoned his family in order to marry his mistress, and when she had a baby, Mary was summoned back to be a serving maid to her new stepsister. Midnight Magic by Avi. Born in New York in 1937, Avi Wardus, Avi was a nickname given to him by his twin sister, grew up in Brooklyn. As a child, Avi had trouble writing, spelling, and punctuating. He suffered from a disorder known as dysgraphia and failed every subject his first semester of high school. But his love of reading and the guidance of a tutor helped Avi overcome this difficulty. Avi says he writes quickly and slowly, with sometimes 40 or 50 rewrites and revisions. He likes to tell a good and suspenseful story that makes you want to race to the end. That's what will happen when you read Midnight Magic. Mangus the magician must free a mischievous princess from a terrifying ghost. But Mangus doesn't believe in ghosts. Actually, he doesn't even believe in magic. His servant boy, Fabrizio, knows more than his master, and he is the princess's secret friend. Will Fabrizio take care of the ghost? The Mirror of Merlin by Tom Barron. Tom Barron grew up on a Colorado ranch, frequently hiking in the mountains and developing a respect for wilderness and the manner in which all living things are connected. A storyteller who has written since childhood, Barron composed his own magazine in 5th grade and has continued writing stories and poems. Now he lives in Colorado with his wife and 3 children and writes in the attic. That's probably where he wrote The Mirror of Merlin. This is the 4th book in the Lost Years of Merlin epic. Here, Merlin finds a strange wickedness rising from a remote swamp on the magical isle of Finkyra. To save his homeland, as well as his own destiny, young Merlin must voyage to frightening places, both on land and within himself. Joined by Halia, the deer woman he has grown to love, Merlin discovers a magical mirror that can alter the future. But when he looks into it, the person he sees is the person he least expects to find. Skellig by David Almond. David Almond grew up in a small mining town in England. He has been a mailman, a brush salesman, an editor, and a teacher. Drawing upon childhood memories for his books, Almond likes writing for children because he considers them to be exciting, creative, and perceptive. The book he remembers as a thrilling book to write is titled Skellig. Michael was looking forward to moving into a new house. It was all going to be wonderful. But now that his baby sister is ill, his parents are frantic, and Dr. Death has come to call. Michael feels helpless, until the day he steps into the crumbling garage. What is this thing beneath the spiderwebs and dead flies? A human being, or a strange kind of beast never seen before? The only person Michael can trust is his new friend Mina. Together, they carry the creature out into the light, and Michael's world changes forever. All right, those are the 8 nominated titles for the 7th through 9th grade division of the Young Reader's Choice Award. All you have to do is read or listen to 2 of the books, and then you can vote in March. Thanks for stopping by. Welcome to this preview of the 2002 Young Reader's Choice Award nominations for the Senior Division, grades 10 through 12. First, though, let me tell you about the boxes, winner of the 2001 Senior Division Award. When Uncle Marco goes on one of his frequent mysterious trips, he leaves 15-year-old Annie in charge of 2 exotic sealed boxes and gives firm instructions. She must not open either box while he's away. But as time passes, Annie can think of nothing else, even with all her other problems at home and school. Surely life couldn't get much worse if she were to take a little peek inside one of the tempting boxes. Fascinated by music as well as things grotesque and macabre, William Slater studied music at Harvard, which he hated, and preserved his sanity by writing constantly in his journals. A pianist for England's Royal Ballet School after college, Slater toured for 9 years with the Boston Ballet and traveled throughout Europe. Now he does what he loves best, writing science fiction. He enjoys writing about fantasy and magic, and about things that might really be possible, such as boxes, which pleased many readers in the Pacific Northwest. The Young Reader's Choice Award is the oldest Children's Choice Award in the United States, and it is the only regional award chosen by students of 2 countries. Each year, students in grades 10 through 12 in Alaska, British Columbia, and Alberta, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana read and vote for their favorite book. You will decide which book will win in 2002. All 10th through 12th graders who have read or listened to at least 2 of the nominated titles can vote in March. To help you decide which of the 5 nominated books you want to read, here's a brief description of each book and author. Biting the Moon by Martha Grimes. Best-selling mystery writer Martha Grimes lives in both Washington, D.C. and Santa Fe, New Mexico. Her books generally contain quirky details and interesting human relationships. After becoming interested in animal rights, Grimes decided to write a mystery combined with an animal rights theme and give most of the royalties to animal charities. The result is Biting the Moon. She didn't know who she was or where she came from, but one morning she awoke in a strange bed and breakfast with a message that her daddy would soon return from Santa Fe. Fearing the worst, this nameless young woman disappeared into the wilderness. She called herself Andy Oliver and lived in the mountains totally alone until she met Mary Darkhope, a girl who shared her loneliness and confusion. Together they vowed to track down the one person who holds the key to Andy's identity, the stranger who abducted her. The Raging Quiet by Cheryl Jordan. A writer when she was only 4 years old, Cheryl Jordan wrote stories throughout her childhood. Now she lives in New Zealand and is still writing books for, now, young adults. She says that her novels contain the seed of truth, though it may be wrapped in fantasy. She hopes her work inspires readers to discover the truth of the imagination. The Raging Quiet. Widowed just 2 days after her unwilling marriage to a man twice her age, Marnie finds herself an outsider in a remote seaside village. Spurned by the townsfolk who suspect her involvement in her husband's death, she has only 2 friends, the local priest and a wild young man called Raver, who is even more of an outcast than Marnie herself. But Marnie's transformation of Raver into the gentle and civilized Raven turns the villagers' distrust of Marnie into a witch hunt and puts her in mortal peril. This is the story of a young woman wrongly accused, yet guilty of just one thing, the unforgivable crime of being different. Rewind by William Slater. The winner of the 2001 Senior Division, William Slater began writing when he was 6. In high school, he wrote poems and stories and composed music. Now he does what he loves best, writing science fiction. Slater lives part of the year in Thailand and part of the year in Boston. He enjoys writing about fantasy and magic and about things that might really be possible. Rewind. When Peter is killed in a car accident, he is aware of the shriek of the tires and a brief, heavy impact. Then he floats upward, pulled into a great white light. Once in the afterlife, he observes his own funeral and hears a booming voice offering him the ultimate opportunity to go back to any moment and change the events leading up to his death. Now Peter is in a race against time to save his own life, but in order to do so, he has to alter the beliefs of his difficult adoptive parents, outsmart the annoying school jock, and discover a way to appreciate his own talents. If he fails, he will die, permanently. Ties That Bind, Ties That Break by Lenzi Namioka. Born in Beijing, China, Lenzi Namioka attended Radcliffe College and the University of California. She has been a mathematics instructor, a broadcasting monitor, and a translator. Namioka's mathematics training has had little influence on my writing, except for an urge to economy. She lives with her husband and 2 daughters in Seattle, Washington. Ties That Bind, Ties That Break. Even though Aylin is not quite 5 years old, she still refuses to have her feet bound in this story set in China in 1911. More spirited than her older sisters, Aylin rebels against the torturous age-old tradition of binding the feet of young girls. Because of this, the family of her intended husband breaks their marriage agreement. Aylin feels no remorse, but as she enters adolescence and her family no longer supports her, she realizes how powerless a girl with no husband is in Chinese society. Tribute to Another Dead Rock Star by Randy Powell. Randy Powell grew up in Seattle and lives there still with his wife and 2 sons. As a kid, he was obsessed with sports. As an adult, he plays tennis when he isn't at his day job as a technical writer or writing books for young adults in his spare time. Powell likes books, the outdoors, some seafood, and rain. His 4th novel is Tribute to Another Dead Rock Star. 15-year-old Grady is the son of Debbie Grennan, a rock star icon who died 3 years ago when she OD'd in her car on the roof of a parking garage. Grady is temporarily staying with his half-brother Louis and Louis' strict and religious stepmother, Vicky. Vicky and Grady are as compatible as Mozart and heavy metal. Grady has been invited to speak at a tribute to his mother. He'll get to ride in a limo, meet groupies, the whole works. But what is he supposed to say to thousands of adoring fans about a mother who abandoned her sons in favor of a musical career? Well, those are the 5 nominated titles for the Young Reader's Choice Senior Division. Just read 2 of the books, and you can vote for your favorite in March. Thanks for listening.